Hello there. This is an old vintage weighing butcher. It's got one scales. I believe that's what they are. It's a 7/8 and a near wedge. And I've been looking for one of these big choppers. If you look at it, there's not a whole lot wrong with it. Almost all I would really, there's not even really a lot of hone wear on it. Almost all I would really need to do is use a little mothers on it, and it probably would come out looking almost new. Well, it's got some, like, I don't know if you'll be able to see them, but light scratches along the blade, but they're not anything that I'm worried about. The problem with this is the scales. If you look at these scales, some kind of critter has been eating the bone. So what I'm going to do, let me set this down here. Well, what I'm going to attempt, I've never done this before. I have some epoxies. I'm not sure which one I'll use. They both might be plugged up because I've had them a while. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this epoxy. It's supposed to dry clear. I'm going to set this razor off to the side. What I'm going to do, wow. Let's try that. Let's mix this up good. It won't be perfect. What I want to do, I want to give this a little bit of time to get sticky. It's supposed to set in 5 minutes. But I'm going to take a toothpick. I don't know. Can you see? Yeah. Yeah, let's see how that works. And I'm going to take I might not be able to, you might not be able to see all that great, but I got to do it how I got to do it. I'm going to take me toothpick, and it's not really super important to me if I get everything. What I want to get for certain is that big chunk out of there. I want to let that set a minute. I want to let the epoxy set for a couple of minutes before I try to use it so that it'll get sticky. So let me get, excuse me, I had to get something to drink. But I don't know if you can see, but I'm trying to get it where you can. You see, it's coming along in there. And I'm just playing with this until it kind of thickens up and kind of stays where I want it to. But I don't know, this might not work. Like I said, I've never done this before. So it might not do any good. There, now it's starting to thicken up. I don't know if you can see or not. I hope that you can. Alright, maybe you can see better now. But I'll just let that dry. Yeah, now that is ugly. But I should be able to sand that once it hardens. Sand that back smooth. And there's some damage right in here, and there's some damage where the wedge looks like it has a lead wedge, which is common, but it's old. That's par for the course. That is the deal with old things. They're not pristine and they're not perfect, but they are well worth the trouble. Get that off of that blade. That's alright, it'll sand off. So we're going to let that dry, and then we'll be back. Alright, we're back. Let me bring this over where you can see. You see that I filled in all these areas. It's not going to be perfect. There's still going to be a few little chips or whatnot, but I just wanted to fill in where it was really, really bad. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand this down. I used epoxy. I had a friend of mine mention that what I'm going to do before we get started, this is just a little, basically a sandpaper stick that they use for your nails, women use for their nails. You get like 10 of them for $1 at the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use this starting out. No, I do not know what the grit rating of this is. But anyway, like I was saying, I used epoxy for this because that is what I had. And frankly, that's what I heard. Okay, that's going too slow. This is a piece of heavy grit sandpaper that I wrapped around this dowel to do curves. This will work. But anyway, I use epoxy because that is what I had handy. I had a friend of mine mention CA gel, and if I was honestly going to recommend a product to do this, that's what I would recommend, because this did not dry as hard as I hoped that it would. This is still, I can still press into that and kind of feel it give, but it will work for this. I don't know how well this is working. Some of that is peeling off, but it's not peeled off in a section where there was any kind of damage. So we're going to find out. Whether this I'm going to find out whether it worked or not. And if you look right here, see where I got that big blob? That's one of the reasons that I got this little stick, was to be able to get in there, or try to be able to get in there. You could use a very tiny file, very small file, if you have any of those available. I've got some, and I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but anyway, I have some of those, but I thought that I would give this a whirl and see how it worked. Yeah, see, the epoxy is pulling up from where I installed it, so that's not something that I like to see. And this is after 2 weeks at least, because time got away from me. I didn't set out to do this, to let this set for 2 weeks. But now see, that's peeling up. So I don't recommend epoxy to do this with, because it does not look like it's coming out the way it should. So now I have to decide what to do about that. I'm going to try to continue and hope that the epoxy will stay where the really bad spots are. You see how that's laying against the fleshy part of my hand, and it's up here next to my wrist. I'm going to be careful not to let it move in any way. I have dulled this on the edge of a glass, but that doesn't mean that that's safe. If you play around, and matter of fact, I'm changing the way I hold it now. I'm going to hold it like that. If you mess around with razors enough, you're going to find out that it doesn't make a dime's worth of difference whether or not that razor is sharp or not. You can lay yourself open in a pretty bad way if you're not careful. So I'm going to use this little stick, see if I can blend a bit more of this epoxy in without it peeling off. But if it doesn't, then I'll have to come up with another solution. And I think this is the part of the spine, or the scale back here, that that was ate away. I hope that I'm getting all of this in the picture. I'm trying to, or in the video, in your view. I'm trying to, but the main concern that I have is not whether or not you can see. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a professional restorer. I'm just some guy that likes to try to fix the things that he owns rather than throw them away and replace them with new. And I like restoring old things. That's one of the issues with this society, in my opinion, is that we don't want to take the time. When I was growing up, what you did was you didn't run out to the store and buy everything new. you took what you had, you bought a decent quality to start with, and for me, with these straight razors, you can't really beat the quality of these razors. Even the modern stuff, in my opinion, there's some really good modern razors out there, and I'm not knocking anyone or any company or anything of the sort, but the quality, these blades were made by master craftsmen who apprenticed for years and years and years. In order to have that title of master craftsman, master grinder, that kind of thing. And there's a heritage to these types of things, to these razors, and to the old shaving gear in general. Even things like the brushes and stuff. Some of the soaps, some of the older soaps that have been around for ever and ever and ever, there's a heritage there that, in my opinion, is important to at least remember. Alright. Well, some of the epoxy rather fell out and some stayed. You can see where it stayed if you look close enough. That's to 1500 or 2000. I went from 600 to 1500 to 2000. I would rather have gone from 220 to 400 to 600 to 800 to 1000 to 1500 to 2000, but I did not have those grits. So now what we're going to do is we're going to polish this with Mothers. The magic elixir of everything good. Mother's Mag. That's gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. It does a lovely, lovely job on everything it touches. And this might not be horn. It looked like horn to me, but I think this is not horn. I think that this is celluloid. I could be wrong. It had all the lines and stuff in it that you expect out of horn and bone and all of that, but it's awful translucent. Now that might be, I've never owned a and I've sanded, so if there were any lines, they're flipping gone. But I mean, I've never owned like a honey blonde horn set of scales, which is what this would be if it was horn, or if it is horn. So I might be mistaken because of that. That might be a bit transparent. I don't know. I want to get this end here. One of the things I want to do is lay a bit of cloth down so that when I'm working on it, it's not scraping against the wood of this table, this bench. if you polish on a blade, be really careful of the edge. You can say all you want to that the edge is not sharp. I can promise you the edge of that razor, just by virtue of that edge being super thin, will cut you to the bone, and that's a fact. And take it from me, before you make a mistake and hurt yourself, understand what I'm saying to you. Because if you do, and I will tell you another thing too, if you do this long enough, you will cut yourself. To shave with this, I really didn't have to go to this length, but this steel is clean enough that I can bring it back beautifully. And if I can do that, why in the world would I not try? You know, if it was beat up and it had a bunch of pitting in it and stuff like that, I would take that and keep that. I would polish the blade up the best that I could and keep all of that, as much of that as I thought that I wanted, just for the fact that that is the history of this blade. But the history of this blade here is that someone took really good care of it. So I don't really have to do that with this. I can clean, it cleans up like this. Cleans up beautifully like this. So this is the final result of the cleanup. And my battery is getting low. I hope it doesn't die on me before I get done. Now we'll hone that up. That'll be another video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you later.